The Carolina Panthers received the worst news possible on Jonathon Brooks on Monday. He is out for the season after re-tearing the same ACL he tore a year ago. What does it mean for Brooks and the Panthers running back room moving forward? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube, and thanks for listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All I need you to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to get your questions in for tomorrow's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Panthers were close, but close doesn't cut it. And that loss on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles, the third straight week in a row, Carolina's gone up against a division leader, as Tampa Bay is now the division leader in the NFC South, and just barely lost, losing to Kansas City on a last-second field goal, losing to the Bucs in overtime on a field goal, then losing yesterday in a game where they really should have had it. Unfortunately, Xavier Legette not able to hold on to what was going to be the game-tying, potentially game or go-ahead touchdown in that game against Philadelphia. But one of the headlines coming out of that game was that Jonathon Brooks, Carolina Panthers rookie second-round pick out of Texas, left the game with a knee injury, was going to have some scans. He had some pain in that right knee, the same right knee he tore his ACL in a year ago at Texas. And the hope was it would not be significant. But as we know, whenever you see someone go down, non-contact injury, make a cut like he did, it's not a good thing. And unfortunately, the news that I think a lot of us likely expected came out on Monday as Dave Canales informed the media that Jonathon Brooks has indeed torn his ACL in that same right knee for a second year in a row. He'll be out for the rest of the season and, of course, have surgery to repair it. The first time he tore his ACL was last November 11th, 2023, while at Texas. So now that's two ACL tears, same knee in a 13-month span. And just damn, man, just devastating for Jonathon Brooks. Awful for someone who has worked his tail off to get into this position, to not just be able to play, but to make it to the NFL. Last year was his opportunity at Texas after sitting behind Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, who are two NFL running backs. Robinson has been outstanding so far this season in Atlanta. Roschon Johnson's been a solid player in Chicago. So it wasn't like he was behind a bunch of chumps and not getting an opportunity. He got it last year. Was a key figure of that Texas offense behind Quinn Ewers at quarterback, then Adonai Mitchell, who's now a receiver in the NFL, Xavier Worthy, who's in the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs, Jatavion Sanders, who's here on this team, a loaded Texas offense that really missed him at the end of that season, as he had been really like the one constant on that team offensively throughout that season. They missed him in the playoff, and he was getting his chance here in Carolina to be that number two back behind Chuba Hubbard. Showed some burst in the game a week ago against Tampa Bay, and then got one carry on Sunday. That was the carry where makes a cut, tears his ACL, tries to hobble off the field, and man, my heart just goes out to him, really does, and I hate to see it. And I did not want to get into the consequences of this for Brooks and what it means for the Panthers on Sunday when reacting to the game, as there were plenty of other things to talk about. I just wanted to send him well wishes. But now that we have the full information and that he's done for the season, and we overall understand how long it takes for players to rehab from an ACL, what does it mean for the Panthers running back moving forward? At least for this season, Mike Boone, who was one of the favorites that the Panthers had throughout training camp and the preseason, who did not make the roster, but has been around all season long, a part of the practice squad. Dave Canales mentioned on Monday at his press conference that he expected that he would be elevated to the active roster. That would make a lot of sense, as right now Miles Sanders, he's on IR. Raheem Blackshear left that game with a chest injury. Turns out it's not significant, but he's day-to-day right now. So depending on how things go with Raheem, the Panthers may go on the open market and try to see who's available to pick up, whether it be someone off the street or someone on someone else's practice squad. But right now, looking like Chuba Hubbard, Mike Boone, Raheem Blackshear, then maybe someone else they bring in to fill out the rest of that running back room, whether it's guys on the active roster or on the practice squad for Carolina for the rest of the year, as they only have 4 games. Don't think 7-10 is going to be good enough for Carolina to make the playoffs. So 4 more games remaining in the 2024 regular season. But going into next year, what exactly is the plan? The great thing for the Panthers is that Chuba Hubbard is already under contract. They already got that figured out the week heading into Munich. They signed him to a 4-year, what could be $37 million deal. What you look at it, it's $15 million fully guaranteed. So truly cut that in half. It's a 2-year, $15 million deal. Chuba will be here in 2025 and he'll be here in 2026. And possibly you could see him being here for the lifetime of that deal, provided that he continues to produce, that Dan Morgan stays as the GM and Dave Canales stays as the head coach. Chuba Hubbard could be here in 25, 26, 27, and in 28 to play out the entirety of that 4-year deal, which may be required out of him now that Jonathon Brooks is going to miss the rest of the season. In timeline-wise, maybe missing the entirety, if not the vast majority of next season as well. We look at Amari Barno. He tore his ACL December 16th of a year ago. Maybe it was the 24th, whenever it was, against Green Bay, and he did not come back until last week. Brooks, it took him a full calendar year from November 11th to, what was it, November, let me see, looking at the calendar now, the Chiefs game would have been the 24th, right, of November. So a full year before he was back actually playing in a game. So if we're looking at it, he's not going to be back if it's another full year until this time next season with 4 games remaining. And at that point in time, do you really need to throw him back out there, or would you rather him play instead of not having him play a game from December 8th until what would be about September 5th or so, whenever the season would start in 2026. Now we're looking at 2 lost seasons for a guy the Panthers like so much that they, after trading back later into the second round, trade up earlier to get the pick 46 to take him, the first running back off the board. We heard all offseason how Carolina wants to be stubborn about running the football, how they're going to value running backs here, and we have seen that by their actions as far as contractually giving Chuba Hubbard that new deal, going out and getting Jonathon Brooks in the second round. Some of the guys that they've signed throughout this time as well to add more to that running back spot. Have they been that dedicated in game to run the ball? Maybe not as much as we would have liked, or at least believed would have happened based off of the rhetoric that was thrown out there leading up to the season by Dave Canales. But right now, Chuba Hubbard is going to be the guy this season and all of next season, just looking at the rehab. And I have no idea how much harder it is to rehab. Maybe it's easier to rehab when you tear the ACL in your knee for a second time in that same knee. He at least knows what he has to go through mentally, what the process and the buildup is. But is that knee ever going to be the same again? I wonder after one time, probably not, but you can bounce back. We've seen plenty of players do it. But after a second ACL tear, playing the position that he plays, can it work out for him? And we know here in Carolina firsthand, Thomas Davis had plenty of knee injuries that cost him years of his career, and he was able to then come back, be an outstanding player, one of the best players in this franchise's history, will one day be in the Hall of Honor here in Carolina and help get them to the playoffs multiple times, help them get to a Super Bowl, and he played later on in his career because of the time that he lost. Now, he's probably the exception, not the rule in this situation, and a completely different position that he played in the NFL compared to what Jonathon Brooks is playing right now, running back. In different body, different person. We have no idea how Brooks is going to bounce back from this. But we know, at least in the past, it's been possible here in Carolina for a player to be able to do that. And I hope that he has the same trajectory moving forward in his career that Thomas Davis had. Hopefully he doesn't have another bad injury, but hopefully he can bounce back, be a long part of this team's hopeful future success, and that this is not something that completely derails his career, a career that has not even been able to get off the runway at this point in time. And that really is the heartbreaking part of it. Someone who is immensely talented, by all accounts, a great guy. And this has now happened twice to him. In the year, he got an opportunity to be the guy at Texas, which set him up to even be drafted in the second round. So fortunately, he played enough games last year to be in a position for Carolina to take him. But now he only gets to play 3 games, and it's it. So we'll see what it looks like. But Chuba Hubbard, he's got that deal. He'll be here next year, be running back 1 again. Would imagine heading to 2026, that would still be the case. I would imagine, too, that they're going to likely cut Miles Sanders. Not much reason to keep him around. Pre-June 1, they could save $5.2 million, and then they would have to take a $2.95 million dead cap hit. Not that significant for Carolina. Opens up some cap space, and maybe they draft another running back. I would think later on in the draft, wait until the 6th round, 7th round to do that instead of getting somebody earlier on like they did this past year. And none of us expected them to go out and get Jonathon Brooks, but you looked at it, it was a departure from some of the mindset the Panthers have had over the last couple of years, where it was always win now mode, even though that meant going 2-15, 5-12, 7-10 those seasons, and not actually being able to win at the level they were hoping to win at when they were going throughout the draft process and the free agency process. So quite possibly we see another thought of someone who can help in the future, as Chuba Hubbard will not be here forever, but he's at least going to be here the next 2 seasons and maybe even longer because of this injury to Jonathon Brooks. We will see what Carolina decides to do. But in the meantime, Mike Boone probably going to be signed to the active roster. Chuba Hubbard going to continue to be RB1. We'll wait on Raheem Blackshear. But this offseason, moving on from Miles Sanders, which would have happened, I think, regardless of this injury, but maybe gives him more of a chance to come back. Don't see that the production has not met the contract at all, and Chuba is your guy moving forward. Go get somebody cheap to be your second running back this offseason, or possibly draft someone if that's what they want to do as far as the direction they want to go at running back. But devastating news out of Carolina as Jonathon Brooks re-tears his right ACL, miss the remainder of the season, and likely a large chunk of the 2025 season as well. Dave Canales spoke to the rest of the media about everything else that occurred on Sunday, including Xavier Legette's drops, J.C. Horn's injury update, and whether he actually was going to give Bryce Young another look. He finally answered that question. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Hey, Locked On Panther fans, I know you're like me and your holiday shopping list is, let's just say, far from complete. Well, if that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for you, the passionate sports fan in your life. Perhaps you've heard of the Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, the NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift. Created and used by the Gronkowski brothers, Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game of workout bottles, and this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% off your order. They're kitchen grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. A patented twist in agitator that breaks up powders but is silent when you shake it instead of the annoying ball. The agitator works as a strainer as well and makes it a very solid tailgating cup to mix drinks. Order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and right here in North Carolina. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. A lot of people are upset about Xavier Legette's drop on Sunday, and, well, rightfully so. That is a ball that he has to catch. He said as much. Dave Canales said as much, and we all sat there and watched it. An excellent ball thrown by Bryce Young, who for the third week in a row basically led the Panthers down the field to either tie or win the game. A couple weeks ago against Kansas City, got him down there, got the tie, or not even, they didn't tie it yet, but got the touchdown, brought them within 2. They get the 2-point conversion, 1:46 left. Unfortunately, Panthers defense can't get a stop. Then last week against Tampa Bay, brings him down the field. Looks like it's his 5th career game-winning drive. Unfortunately, the Panthers defense also could not get a stop there before regulation, and the Panthers lose that game in overtime. Then on Sunday, against a Vic Fangio defense, needing to go 97 yards, Bryce Young took him all the way down the field, we thought, for the game tying and potentially go-ahead extra point. But unfortunately, as we all saw, Xavier Legette was not able to hold on to the football. So as far as the feelings about Bryce Young moving forward, he's been nails in those situations against the Chiefs, the Bucs, and the Eagles. That is exactly what the Panthers were looking for when they took him number 1 overall back in April of 2023. That guy, what he's done at the end of these games, that has been great. But what has also become abundantly clear at the end of these games in these losses the last 3 weeks is the Panthers got a lot of areas they need to improve upon this offseason if they're going to continue to build this team around their quarterback right now, Bryce Young, in 2025 and beyond. The last couple games have not been on Bryce, as evidenced by that drop by Xavier Legette on Sunday afternoon. I'm seeing a lot of people who are wondering, is he a bust? I was on WCNC with Nick Carboni, as I am every Sunday after Sunday Night Football, the local NBC affiliate here in Charlotte. And he was asking me, is he a bust? I'm like, no, he's not a bust. And y'all know, if you watched the show back during the spring, I wasn't a huge fan of Xavier Legette in this draft class. I was looking at guys like Keon Coleman. That was someone who I really liked. Adonai Mitchell as well. And it's not like Keon or AD have had great seasons so far. You look at Legette's numbers, probably been a little bit better than Coleman. Coleman has also been inactive the last couple of weeks, which is not great, as Legette has been healthy and been able to play for Carolina throughout the season. Now he had his issues with the hamstring back during OTA's mandatory minicamp, had the foot issue as well during training camp that probably set him back. But all in all, I mean, I think he's produced a decent level. Now, you would, of course, love him to be giving you the kind of effort you're seeing out of Malik Neighbors in New York with the Giants, or Brian Thomas Jr. down there in Jacksonville, or Marvin Harrison Jr. in Arizona, but he's not as good as those guys. And there's a reason why they were drafted before anybody else at receiver was drafted. But I've seen people say Ladd McConkey was on the board and the Carolina Panthers took Xavier Legette. And hey, rightfully so, you can criticize that position and that move, but were you saying that back in the spring? If you weren't, I don't really want to hear you now, hindsight 2020, come out here and be like, oh, well, they could have got Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey also has Justin Herbert as his quarterback. And as well as Bryce is playing, as well as Andy Dalton played at times, the Panthers' quarterback play has not been as good as Justin Herbert has been this season. So let's also keep that in mind. No, Legette has not been a bust. No, I don't think he's going to be a bad player for Carolina. I think he can be a solid player for them. I just do not believe, and I had never have believed, that he would be a number 1 wide receiver, which is why I didn't feel like it was fair when people were saying, oh, well, Seattle Seahawks staff, there's DK Metcalf comparisons. Don't do that. Don't do that. Even though he had a better season than DK Metcalf even had in his career down in Oxford at Ole Miss. He also played with guys like Van Jefferson and A.J. Brown and Dawson Knox, and there's only one football, where last year it was pretty much Legette, as Juice Wells was injured there in Columbia. And he stepped up, played well. Hats off to the guy for overcoming everything he had to overcome in those 5 seasons down at South Carolina to get to the position where the Panthers could not wait another night to take him there in the NFL draft. He's had the drops in Cincinnati. I think it cost him. Certainly, no question, it cost the Panthers on Sunday. He'll be better. He's going to work at it. Thielen talked about it. Every receiver has these drops. It's a part of the game. You don't want to see it in those situations. He's got to be better, absolutely. But I'm not sitting here giving up on the Xavier Legette because of the drop issues he's had so far this season. Now, I don't believe he's going to be a number one receiver, and that's not ideal if you take him in the first round, but he was going to be right there at the end of the first round or early second round anyway. So whatever, as far as expectations, I think he can be a good player for him. I just don't think he's going to be like that alpha kind of guy ever. That's just my opinion. But I'm not out here quitting on Xavier Legette because of some of the rough stretches he had so far this season. We still haven't seen that game-breaking speed. Haven't seen really any big plays down the field from him just yet. That will come in due time. All right, so everyone relax, please. And speaking of that drop, Dave Canales came out and he said that Legette has had an old injury apparently, but it hasn't been an issue. And here's kind of how I handle these things. If you're not on the injury report, understanding that no one is 100%, I don't really want to hear the injury excuse. If you're on the injury report and you play and you have issues, then okay, I'll hear it. If you're not on the report, then I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's because of the injury. Maybe, but it's not on the injury report right now. So it's an old injury, apparently to his hand. Canales said it has not been an issue. He told the media, said, quote, went right to him afterwards and said, hey, man, it was a beautiful route. Let's find ways to finish this. And I know that he will get that done. He's been playing so hard for us. So counting on him. Canales is a former receiver. Idzik was a former receiver. He has his receiver coach. There's like multiple coaches on this offense coaching staff that used to play the position. I just don't see how this guy is going to be a complete failure with what's around him with this coaching staff in Carolina. So be patient. There was always going to be growing pains. He was never going to come in here and have the kind of season he had last year in Columbia and be the best receiver among rookies. We talked about it just a couple weeks ago. How it was him, Coker, and Sanders among the top 10 in rookie pass catchers in the league. That's a positive thing to still look at. Yes, he's got to do better. So let's not quit on the guy because of some of the issues that he's had so far this season. All right? Let's understand that. The most important thing is that Bryce Young's been playing better. J.C. Horn, day-to-day with a groin. Canales said, quote, he checked out pretty good for what we hoped coming out of the game. So it sounds like they were a little bit more concerned than it turned out to be. He's been dealing with a groin injury the last couple of weeks. So that's something that popped up on him on Sunday. And we'll find out whether he has to miss any time. Would be great for J.C. Horn, contract negotiation-wise, to be able to play. If he only misses one game out of 17, he's good. But that's just one thing that we've been concerned about. And it was a matter of if or not, when, not if it was going to happen. It's happened. And hopefully he doesn't miss a game, but we'll see. And then finally, I was waiting for someone to ask this. David Newton asked Dave Canales on Monday. All right, Dave, well, you were pretty steadfast and Andy Dalton was going to be the guy. And we've seen how Bryce Young has played. When was he ever going to get another look? And Dave had this to say, quote, yeah, it would have been really interesting. Fortunately, we got the opportunity. Bryce got the opportunity that he did. And on the other side of it, I was pulling for Andy at the time too, who was building some weeks. He had a couple rough weeks and was like, here we go. Let's get this thing back on track. It's two stories and that's life. And Bryce is making the most of his opportunities. And here we are just with the weekly growth. It took another step in a positive direction against a really good team. That's where we're at. We're week to week. Here we go against Cowboys and we'll have to lock back in. So did he say he was going to go back to Bryce Young? He said it would have been really interesting. And fortunately, they got the opportunity and Bryce got the opportunity, but he was really pulling for Andy. Again, y'all, it took a car accident. There's nothing. And I saw plenty of people reporting this last week in the national media that the Panthers always plan on going back. Maybe they always did, but they gave no indication. And by they, I mean Dave Canales gave no indication at all that he was going back to Bryce Young. But as I've been saying the last couple of weeks, it doesn't really matter because Bryce is back out there. He's playing well, and it looks like he's going to be the guy in 2025. So that's really what matters at the end of the day. Panthers appear to, for the moment, not have completely got it wrong. They're at number 1 overall, or at least not as wrong as we all thought a couple of weeks ago when he was benched earlier this season. All right, take a quick pause, come back and review the keys to victory that I go over on Fridays. How the Panthers do? Actually, they did okay, but obviously not okay enough to win this game on Sunday. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And speaking of bets, my God, is that true? For the first time this season, the Carolina Panthers are favored at 1.5 points against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday inside of a Bank of America Stadium. -126 money line, over under set at 42.5. The Panthers are rightfully so favored against the dreadful Dallas Cowboys. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On Fridays, leading into a game, I go over my 3 keys to victory. Then here on Tuesdays, we review those 3 keys to victory. And key number 1 against Philadelphia was to contain the run. There was no way in hell the Carolina Panthers were going to stop the run. They came in ranked dead last in the NFL, allowing 2,002 yards so far this season. Last year, the Panthers were ranked 23rd at the end of the season against the run and had only allowed, well, not only, but had allowed 2,081 yards. So the Panthers, heading into last week, had almost given up the same amount of yards they gave up for an entire 17-game season through 12 games. Obviously not great. The Eagles entered last week second in the NFL in rushing yardage and rushing yards per attempt. Saquon Barkley led the NFL in rushing yards and rushing attempts. Panthers, though, in their recent wins, and at least the games that they played close in, but the recent wins, but the games that they played close in as well, they allowed 6.1 and 6.3 yards per rush versus Tampa and Kansas City in those 2 close losses. They allowed 167 yards total against the Giants in Munich, but only 4.9 yards per rush in that OT win. 197 yards allowed versus the Saints, but only 4.8 yards per rush. The Panthers came into the game last week or on Sunday, 26 in the NFL in yards per rush attempt, allowed at 4.8. So they could allow just around that. Even if they gave up almost 200 yards rushing, they could have a chance. Well, they had a chance, but they still allowed 209 yards rushing and 6.7 yards per attempt, which is right there on line to what they've been giving up the last couple of weeks against Tampa and KC in these close losses. The Eagles are now leading the NFL in rushing. The Panthers have now given up 2,211 rushing yards this season, which blows by what they gave up a year ago when they were 23rd against the run in the NFL. Saquon Barkley is still leading the NFL and has now broken Shady McCoy's single-season rushing record up there in Philadelphia and improved his MVP odds for how he played on Sunday. And despite not being able to contain the run, Carolina still, and in my opinion, should have won this game. Number 2, be aggressive. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. You know, the whole cheerleader thing. Dave Canales had not been aggressive. Really, most times this season, had a couple fake punts. Didn't work out. One of them in Denver, I was just confused as hell why he decided to do it then. But he has not been that aggressive when it's come to 4th and 1, 4th and 2, just 4th and short. Why not go for it? Your team's not good. Yes, they're playing better, but the record is what the record is. And this has not been a good football team. They still are dead last in the NFL by a wide margin in point differential this season at -155. Play to win the game. Twice last week against the Buccaneers, Canales opted to kick a field goal instead of go for it in plus territory on a 4th and 1 and a 4th and 2. Made one of the field goals, missed one of the field goals. Boos rained down before both of those field goals were even kicked by Panther fans upset about him not going for it. The team came in at 3-9. They had nothing to lose other than another game. They had already lost plenty of them at this point in time in the season, and he was aggressive. He opted on a 4th and goal from the 3 after Bryce Young got stepped on by Robert Hunt on that 3rd and goal from the 1. They went for it. Bryce found Tommy Trimble. Touchdown. Panthers went for it again on a 4th and 2 from the Eagles 11 instead of kicking, which would only made it 14-13. The ball was tipped, but Adam Thielen found it, caught it, First down, Panthers scored touchdown on that drive, would be their last of the game. And then they went for it again on a 4th and 2 from the Eagles 27. Weren't able to convert as Bryce was targeting Xavier Legette. Not a great throw by Bryce, but 3 for 5 on 4th down. Now, a couple of them they had to go for, but I do really appreciate that he was actually aggressive in this game, even in a losing effort. At just this point in time, you don't want to get crazy. I totally get it. Even if you're like 3-10, which they are right now against Dallas, are you going to be going for it like on 4th and 1 from your own 11-yard line in the first quarter? No, I wouldn't expect that to happen. I wouldn't advocate for that because you're still, of course, trying to win the game. But let's be reasonable here when you're going to kick and when you're not going to kick. If you're in plus territory, go for it. Like even if you're at your 30, if you're at your only 35 and it's like 4th and inches, go for it. I would even think that in the middle of the year, we've seen people do it before. It's not crazy. Dan Campbell, what he did on Thursday night, play to win the game. Detroit's 12-1. Why? Because of things like that. And of course, they're a very good football team. And number 3, needed to finish. And there were areas of the Panthers had not finished in recent weeks. They were 3 for 10 in the red zone in the 2 weeks prior against the Bucks and against the Chiefs. They had fallen to 17th in NFL in red zone offense. Eagles were the 5th best red zone defense heading into Sunday's game. In their wins against the Saints and the Giants, Panthers were 5 for 6 in a red zone. And also got to finish on defense. Couldn't do that a couple times the last couple of weeks. You look at we thought was the game tying drive against KC. Couldn't get that stop to get in overtime or get the ball back. And then, of course, Panthers go up against Tampa Bay. Could not get that stop. Got to finish the game. Get the overtime. Defense does get the stop. Chuba Hubbard fumbles. Got to finish. Can't have missed field goals. We did see the extra point by Eddie Pinheiro. That really was inconsequential at the end of the day. But the Panthers overall, 2 for 2 in the red zone, 2 for 2 in those goal-to-go situations. So great to see that. But when it comes down to finishing, Legette did not finish. Did not catch the ball. Did not get that touchdown. And that, among other things, is obviously the turnover that led to 7 points. Cannot ignore that. The Panthers weren't great against the run in this. But I think overall defensively, I mean, aside from the run, it's not like they passed the ball. I don't think Philadelphia came in wanting to pass. And I saw some Eagles media were talking to A.J. Brown in the locker room, and only wide receivers, man. Receivers would rather have 11 receptions for 200 yards and their team go 3-14 than have like 2 receptions for 19 yards and their team be undefeated. Like that's what they really care about, only them. It's just crazy, man. Like it's every guy in this league now is just a damn diva. And we had one here in Carolina, Deontay Johnson, and well, he didn't get to play on Sunday because conduct detrimental to the team. Or I think the Ravens might have a bye, but he's not going to play when they're out of their bye. But come on. Now I don't 100% believe all those guys would rather have those numbers opposed to actually winning. Oh, but damn, it's crazy. But they were able to stop the pass as Philly wasn't really that dedicated to it. And there were areas where the Panthers did finish. In the red zone, they did it, but when it needed to have that ball caught, unable to get that done, Xavier Legette on Sunday. So 3-10, it is what it is. Definitely have a winnable game on Sunday at home against Dallas. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, thanks for watching the show here on YouTube. Subscribe or follow the show for free here and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where tomorrow I'll be answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. So either at me or DM me to get those questions into me right now. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always, and forever keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all on Wednesday.